Configuration of CMS, we assume that the installation is done and we are ready with the installation. Now, to access our CMS, we need to enable all these services. So we will enable services like DNS, NTP. We will see how we can enable those services. So let's here just tell you what our lab is like this. Here we have a CMS with IP 10.1.5.31. We have a switch. I mean, this is the lab I'm using right now. Yours will be different IPs that I just sent. Then we have PC1, PC2. Let's suppose these are the users who are accessing the web apps. 200, 201 IP. Then we have a DNS and we have CMM to manage CMS. We have the DNS 10.1.5.100. Okay, so this is the architecture of our lab, and we will do the lab now. So for that, okay. So first thing we need to access CMS through PuTTY to enable these services, because right now we do not have the web interface of it. So just take the flow of this lab is as the installation is completed in the VMware ESXi host is completed. Now we want to access our CMS like we do in case of UCM or Expressway, which is just after you have done the installation, you just activate the it from there, log in, and not much you have to do through CLI. It just gives you a web interface from there and you can log in through web. But in case of CMS, you have to enable these services for that. So we will use PuTTY. We will need to access our CMS through SSH. We have CMS1, or we can type in the host name or IP here, which is 1581. Okay, we have to log in. CMS and okay. Okay, we are logged in. Next we need to do is we need to configure the DNS server as the first service we need to enable. For that, the command is you would have to make a note of these things like DNS add. The command is forward zone. Then is the domain. This is the syntax. So here, let's suppose any domain I want. This is a wildcard. If I have a specific domain name that I want, I can type in the domain name. I'm just using a dot, that means any domain. Request goes to this. So I want any request comes from any domain should go to my DNS server, and my DNS server IP is this. Okay. Hello.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay. I lost connection. Okay, so this is done. This is the first thing to add the DNS, and we want to enable DNS. And as for that, we need to enable domain wise. So for domains, we use forward zones, forward lookup zones. So through the command line, we are calling that forward lookup zone to allow domain this. You can specify the domains like in, let's suppose if you have any multiple domains you want to allow and only those domains specifically, you can give these commands one by one for each domain and then call it to your DNS. So providing the IP address of the DNS. We can confirm it using DNS command, where it shows the domain name. In our case, it's wildcard, so it's showing dot. Otherwise, it will show you the domain name here. And the next is our domain DNS server IP. Next is we will configure the NTP. What is NTP server add. And the NTP server IP in our lab, the NTP server IP is 10.1.5.2.5. Okay, then we can verify the NTP status. Always make sure if you are checking NTP status just after giving the NTP server command, sometimes it does not show you the output because it takes time for the synchronization. So like now, there's a delay because it's synchronizing. So you'll have to wait a little. Says timeout. We can try again. Now it's done. So we can see our NTP status here. We have NTP server. These are some information. Its reference ID, local, delay was this much, jitter is this much, and so on. The synchronization. So NTP status is done. Next, we need to create certificates. So the certificates are required for a web admin service, for CallBridge, and for WebBridge. So in production environments, usually we use a public CA or a CA authority for that to sign the certificates. Here we will be using self-signed certificates. So for that, for self-signed certificates, there are some commands we can run here. So that would be used on the CMS itself to create self-signed certificates. So PKI, this is the command. PKI self-signed. Let's suppose first I'm enabling web admin. Okay, we can see the keys are created. So two files gets created. One is the key, another is the certificate file. Then next we need to configure is PKI self-signed web bridge common name, then our domain. So in our case, the domain is, I believe, CMS 5.1. You can check that what domain is being used. CLL-collab dot internal. In my lab, it is this. And it is done. So it has created a key file for webbridge.key and a self-signed certificate webbridge.crt, which is the certificate. So this is done. Next, we will enable CallBridge. So for that, the command is PKI self-signed CallBridge CN colon. These commands are important, so I suggest you to note these down. And CLL lab dot internal. This is our domain, common name with domain. Created key file, this should be the result. And our CallBridge service is also enabled here with this. And lastly, we can confirm all these certificates and key files using a verification command PKI list. And we can see the list of web admin key, web admin CRT, WebBridge key, WebBridge CRT, which is these are the certificates, CallBridge key and CallBridge certificate, which we are enabled. And after this, we should be able to access our CMS through web. So let's see that in our lab where we will see some more options also.